Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Life, July 31st, 2025. So we start off with Kat and Rafe. So they're catching up because the last time that they spoke, Kat was actually helping Rafe to, get the coordinates for where Ari and Holly were located, after they were kidnapped. So he had the opportunity to thank her for her help, and she's just glad everything worked out. So she said, my brain is foggy, but I don't remember you having a kid. So he said, no, it's not mine. I'm just babysitting, right? So they're catching up, and they're discussing briefly about the case, but then Chad interrupts it, and then Chad is surprised to see them together because he never knew that they knew each other. But I'm saying, why is it your business, Chad, again? But anyways, Kat says that, they run into each other a lot of times. And, Rave made a cover story about how she, you know, um, retrieved a toy for Tesaro. So, anyways, they said they would catch up later on, and then Chad leaves the both of them, right? So at some point, Kat said that she wanted to talk to Rave, but not here. She doesn't want nobody to really know what they're really up against or what their mission is on, right? So they meet up privately, and Rafe tells her in detail, the situation behind Tessar and how he was, he's fostering, right? So he never thought that, Javi and, Leah, for all people, would gravitate towards this baby, given that he's changed and everything. But, it's not only Javi that sees it, it's also Chad, and he's a good judge of character. So she said, he's not really a good judge of character if he can't see that I'm lying to him. So Rafe says, look, at the end of the day, we can't involve him in this, and we have to be as very private as possible. And Kat is just glad that it wasn't blurred out in the public, but they're on her, she didn't accidentally blow their cover. So they talk more about the Demira family and what EJ might be up to. She hasn't really found anything concrete other than, he's a poor manager, and that, they're complaining about the staff cuts, the budget cuts, other things going on at the hospital. So they know with EJ involved, Versivex is not going to take off for a while. So he's not really a patient man. So maybe he has something else going on, and that's what they are intended to find out. So anyways, they talk more about the other Demir family members, and that Tony's in town and what's his agenda. He's the good Demir, and he had an evil twin brother that was killed by Abigail. So Kat has been doing her research, and she stumbled upon Stefano, and she said, he has cheated there so many times, but is he still alive? So Rafe said, last time it was, his essence into a microchip, but that was destroyed. So I'm not sure if he's really around. So she said, given that his name is Phoenix, it's no telling if he's still around, but hopefully they're praying that he's still, deceased, right? So anyways, they talk about other family members that are gone or off the radar. Megan escaped in the submarine, and Dimitri is off the radar. He was just discovered as a family member, sorry, but then he escaped somewhere. Also, they talked about Stefano. Well, Stefan Demira, and that nobody knows where he actually is after him and Gabby's marriage fell apart. So they were just getting into details with what's going on with the Demira family. So back to EJ and Susan. So Susan is having, this psychic episode that, Stefano's presence is around still, and, she's feeling him around the place, and EJ saying, like, are you sure about this? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. So she said that, she's picking up some vibrations, and she's going to this psychic school. No, not psychic school, medium and training school or whatever. And she's picking up some vibrations. So Chad comes in, and EJ is very happy to see him because, finally something can interrupt what's going on between him and his mom. So Chad comes in, and, Susan is saying, like, look, I'm picking up vibrations that your dad is still around, and Chad is finding that hard to believe, and EJ fills him in on what's going on with his mom, and that she's now a medium in training and all that. So anyways, while she's there picking up vibrations around the house, going around all the furniture and just acting crazy as usual, he's talking to Chad and telling him how represented for Johnny in the trial today, and he's happy how he represented him. He said, "Look, I love that kid. He's a good kid. Just told the truth, right?" So, anyways, he said, "Speaking of father, I want us to be, you know." together as a family. I appreciate you. I love you. And, Chad also said he's a great father and that he loved him as well. So he invited him to dinner and he said, no, no thanks because, of how Susan is acting. He doesn't really want to be around, right? So Susan is still there, flickering the light and moving across the sofa like a snake. I don't know what this woman is doing, but I know some people like Susan, but I'm not here for Susan. I think her character is just really unnecessary. Definitely tune out to it. It's just really annoying to me. So Sarah is at the hospital and Xander comes over with Victoria and she's surprised to see him here. She's saying, "What brings you here?" So he said that, Victoria, based on her vibe, like, she wanted to be with her mom a little earlier. So, she finds it hard to believe because the plan was to bring Victoria tomorrow. So she's there, making a big deal out of things and thinking that Xander has an ulterior motive. And he's saying that, can't somebody just do something nice and generous? So she said, "Not how you've been acting these days. I don't really believe it." So, anyways, he said, "You know what? Let's go home," right? So she said, "I'm sorry for how I'm acting. I've just been under a lot of stress. I was talking to this patient about their condition and them being a parent and everything. And it just makes me just realize that, we definitely provide a lot for Victoria and she doesn't have to ask for anything or need anything." So, anyways, they talk about each other, about the love that they have for Victoria. So Xander is saying, "What about the love for each other?" So she says, no matter what, she still loves him and he feels the same way. So he's like, "What next?" So they said, I mean, yes, we love each other, but that's not enough. And, we need to be at peace with each other and we're decent now. So, we still have to go through the legal separation. So he said, "You know what? I have a folder here instead of the nanny bringing it to you. Let me just give it to you now, right? I hope everything is straightforward. It's pretty standard." So, of course, Sarah is, again, thinking about this, like, really, are we going through this? So he's like, "Are you satisfied with this?" So she said, "Yeah, what about you?" So he said, "Yeah." But you can tell that they're hesitating amongst each other because they really don't want to go through this separation, but they're still going to go through it for the sake of Victoria. And she signs the paper and gives it to him. So he gives her Victoria and he's looking at her bonding with Victoria that they have the 2 days together. But anyways, they need to just get over what they're getting over and just make up and work on their marriage because, they know they don't want to separate. But anyway, speaking of couples, I again frown when I see Stephanie and Alex, right? So Alex is there in his kiss to cook apron, half naked, preparing some dinner for her. And she's, happy to see him and, rubbing up on him, being intimate or whatever. And, he surprises her with the manuscript. It's ready for print. So she's looking through it and she sees a passage that she doesn't want to be out there in public. So he said that he thought that Kate handled it, but apparently not. So he tried to call somebody to get through to Kate, and at some point Kate said that, "Look, the manuscript is already ready to print. It's gonna be a problem to really take it out of the printer and do take out the passage and everything." So you know she tells Alex why she's uncomfortable about the passage, that it's about an abusive ex. you know, she doesn't want him to, pick up the manuscript and read and think it's from her. So he's saying that, look, you have a pseudonym. It's not going to be a big deal. He's not going to think it's from you. Don't worry about it, right? So she ends up, accepting that, that it can be printed as it is. They have dinner, that was really it between them. Nothing much to this scene. So Steve and Kayla are having a cute little date night at home. They're making pizza. And Steve is just catching up Kayla to his recent case that somebody wants him to look into the Kiriakis family. He doesn't go into much detail, but he does find something concerning about Alex, right? And he's worried that Stephanie might be in danger in some way, some form. So she's saying, what did Alex do or what might Alex be involved in? So he tells Kayla that Alex was involved in some wrongdoing back in the day. He was very young, he did some stupid stuff, and he talked to Justin about it. Justin said that, he got a slap on the wrist. He has made amends since then. He's all good. So she said that, I'm not really worried that Alex might do anything to harm Stephanie, but I can get that you weren't fond of him at first, and now you're kind of worried about, the repercussions. And then Steve talked about her Stephanie's ex Jeremy. Apparently he, thought that he didn't do any wrongdoing, but turns out he was involved in some criminal actions. He was abusive towards Stephanie, and he and Bo was finding out everything back then. So he's worried that, maybe Alex, might be like that later on. So Kayla said that he's not like Jeremy. I don't think he would put a hand on Stephanie. And Steve believes that, but he also believes that, he doesn't want anything to happen to Stephanie. He's conflicted about whether he should tell Stephanie this information or just let her handle it. So, Kayla says she has a good head on her shoulders. She's not worried about it, She's a big girl. She can handle herself, right? So, Steve said that he's going to just keep an eye on Alex, but he's gonna trust that Stephanie will make the right decision, and hopefully everything works out for the best, right? So they get to eating their pizza. Well, they didn't get to eat their pizza. They were doing their own little intimate things, right? So, anyways, Kat is at hospital to find out more information on EJ, and she runs into Chad again, and they talk more about how she thanks him for picking up Felicity when she had a work emergency. And they talk more about whether or not they were gonna see each other again after that. So she talks about he talks about the trial, and that he had to testify against his nephew. And she said, one thing about the Mayer family is they're always in some kind of trials or anything like that. Do you have any information on some of the trials that your family have been through? So he said, I'd rather not get into that. So she said, okay. So they walk out together in the elevator, right? So at some point, the elevator goes through a mechanical problem and they're stuck in there. So at this point, that was where the episode ends. I don't know what is going on. Maybe it's because of them budget cuts EJ has inflicted onto the hospital, but let's see. But anyways, guys, this is it for today's episode. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys tomorrow.